Module 12, the lymphatic system, lymph and lymph vessels. Let's begin studying the lymphatic system by looking at the lymph vessels and the material that travels through them. The material that travels through the vessels is called lymph. Lymph is a watery liquid formed from interstitial fluid and found in lymph vessels. You learned about interstitial fluid in Module 10. It's the fluid found around the cells of the body. This fluid is made by a continual and natural leaking of clear fluid out of the capillaries of the cardiovascular system. Up to 90% of the interstitial fluid makes its way back into the capillaries. The leftover 10% goes to the lymphatic vessels. Once interstitial fluid gets into the lymph vessels, it's called lymph. Yet even lymph eventually makes its way back to the circulatory system via the lymphatic trunks or the thoracic duct, dumping it into the subclavian veins. Lymphatic vessels begin as dead-end capillaries which are porous. These vessels are called lymph capillaries. The cells of the lymph capillaries are epithelial cells, and they overlap each other to form the dead-end capillaries. That overlap is important because it allows for the interstitial fluid to easily flow into them by moving in between the spaces of overlap. Again, once interstitial fluid makes its way into the lymph capillary, it's called lymph. The overlapping epithelial cells also create another important structure: tiny valves. They work like the valves in the circulatory system's veins, preventing lymph from flowing backwards. You can find lymph capillaries and lymph vessels all over the body, with the exception of the central nervous system, the bone marrow, and areas without blood vessels, such as cartilage. Like the circulatory system's vessels, lymph capillaries flow into larger lymph vessels, which eventually travel to the lymph nodes. The nodes behave as areas for filtering the lymph. They remove the foreign organisms and dead material. Lymph then moves to the circulatory system, where it becomes part of the blood plasma. Though I keep referring to the circulatory system to help explain the lymphatic system, there's one big difference between the two. The lymph system has no big pump, like the heart, to move the lymph around. So how does it move through the body? Well, it moves through the vessels much the same way as blood moves through the veins. When skeletal muscles contract, they squeeze the nearby lymph vessels, causing lymph to move through them. The one-way valves ensure that lymph moves in the correct direction too. Additionally, there is smooth muscle tissue in the larger lymph vessels. When it contracts, it also helps the lymph move. And finally, when you inhale, the pressure in the thoracic cavity decreases, pulling lymph into the thoracic duct so it returns to the subclavian vein.